What is going on, beautiful people? Here we are. It is a beautiful day, and I have an extremely special surprise for you all that I know you're going to love. It's been one of my inspirations to not necessarily just interview, but to have conversations with people who truly inspire me and who embody love, who embody mastery, and who embody wisdom. And I have two of those people who are going to be joining us very shortly, named Shekina and Sananda. And oh man, I have so many stories about these two. But in short, they've just tremendously impacted my life in such a short amount of time. And I always like to share the story of when I first met them, because that's really where it all began, right? And when I first met them, I was at a spiritual retreat in San Diego, and it was a retreat that was pretty much a gathering of psychics and healers where we were just seeing what we can do for the world and the planet, just casual things, right? And at some point, I kept hearing about Shekina and Sananda. Oh, Shekina and Sananda are coming. Shekina and Sananda. I'm like, who the heck are Shekina and Sananda? And but everyone was just talking about this. I was talking about them with this reverence and with this joy. And at some point, I remember we were all sitting in the living room and we were just kind of gathered in a circle. And all of a sudden, everyone's head kind of turns because there's two people walking down the stairs. And I turn and I look, and I just see these two beautiful people dressed in white. But at the moment, if I'm being completely honest, there was judgment that came up in me, because I'm not used to seeing, or I wasn't used to seeing, people dressed so celestially and all that stuff. So, my ego went to judge in that moment. But as quickly as I went to judge, I just instantly felt their presence, and I instantly felt their power, and I instantly felt their love. And I recognized in that moment, like in all moments, that all judgment is self-judgment, right? And so it was obviously something that I had inside myself. And so they came down the stairs, and they came and they sat and they began to introduce themselves and share themselves with us. And I was just so mesmerized by their level of coherence and their ability to speak not just celestially, but to be able to present themselves in a very coherent, grounded, and practical way as well. And so, needless to say, that really sparked my interest. And the more I got to know them and connect with them, they they just blew my mind. There's no other way to say it. Their story fascinated me, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. And and more than that, I have to say, what I love about each of them, they're both very unique in my opinion. You know, Shekina, one of the things I love about her is she always one-ups my wisdom. And I love that. I don't get that experience very often, but I remember there was one time I said something to her about, I'm like, you know what, now that I know you guys, you're amazing. You've helped change my life. You're blowing my mind. But like, what's with the clothes? Like, what's with the swag? Don't you want to be more relatable so other people can relate to you? And she just looked at me and she was just like, embodying your divinity is the most relatable thing you can do. And I was just like, it was one of those moments that just was everything for me, because she pointed out how this need that I had to be relatable was actually an insecurity of mine. And so when she gave me that piece, it was a very powerful shift for me. And so she really has this way of one-upping my wisdom in the most blissful way possible. And Sananda has this way of just so clearly and so purely softening any edges that you might have in your consciousness and your mind around, be it your spiritual gifts or something in your heart. There's just so much love emanating from the both of them. And together, the two of them as a team, as a partnership, are just pure magic. And so it is with my highest excitement that I get to introduce you guys to the one and only Shekina and Sananda. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Brother David. What a beautiful, beautiful heart sharing and introduction.
Yes.
Wow, David, honestly, tears are certainly here in the eyes and in the heart. And remembering those moments as you see them through your sacred eyes and through your filter is absolutely just so wonderful. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, you have a remarkable gift of not only touching the heart, but also awakening laughter in the same moment. So it's like tears in the eyes of sweetness, but also laughter in the belly.
Yes, thank you so much.
Just a complete filling of the entire container.
I do my best. I do my best, and thank you. I appreciate it, and it's honestly so good to have you guys here in this space. I've been really excited about it ever since we decided that we were going to do this. So thank you for being here first and foremost. And I guess just to get started, just how are you guys? How are you doing?
Yeah, magical. We are wonderful. Thank you for asking.
We're great, and we know this is such a wonderful opportunity to connect to you, beloved David, your beautiful smile and that sweet glow in your eyes, and also to all who love you and who trust you and who know you being your magical, vibrant, effervescent self.
Thank you so much. Yes. And you know, we have lots of people who are going to be tuning into this, both live and on the replay later on. And so I would love to hear from you, I guess, an introduction of sorts of who are or who is Shekina and Sananda, and you know, and how did you become Shekina and Sananda, and how did you guys meet in your love story, if you care to share?
Wow, how many hours do you have, beloveds?
we need lifetimes for this.
Yeah, we could definitely fill volumes, but let's.
This is the redacted version.
Yes.
Yeah, let's distill it into its quintessence for the sake of this beautiful live stream. So who are we? We are what everyone is, and that's simply love. And our journey is really that journey of love and following the path of that love. And that the depth of that love that we speak into is limitless. It's not the romantic association of what love can feel like, but what love truly is at its nth degree is pure creation itself. And so that's what we are. That is our role, to awaken that in every beautiful heart that comes upon our path, to help you remember who you truly are. And our paths are completely different in their own right. My path was more of the internal alchemy, the alchemic pathway, and my beloved wife's path was more just complete destiny. I'll let her share a bit more about her experience, but I'm always touched to learn more about my own life as well, as she shares her profound experiences, because she went through a complete death initiation. Her soul, the original soul that once was in her vessel, in her physical body, isn't the soul that is before us today. And so she actually had to die for 6 days and 6 nights and become completely resurrected for another consciousness to come through, which took her 7 years to even integrate that experience. That is in and of itself a profundity that's let you, beloved, share more of.
Absolutely, my pleasure. But before we get into that, you know, who, right? The who. So many people are focused on the who they used to be in a past life, how they, you know, made history or didn't make history. And yet we're here to say that it isn't the who that's important in this now. It is the what. What are you doing now? What is your service to humanity now? Because whoever we've been in the past, which I can assure you we're not going to get into here, is only important in how we serve now. Because we're not here to repeat the past. We are here to blaze a new now that thus creates the crystallization pattern for a new future.
Yes.
And thus brings in the new earth and the golden age. So before we talk about sort of the narrative and the story, which is so colorful and beautiful as it is, it's really so important to let go of the who the perception might be or might not be.
Yes.
Allow the heart to open and receive the wisdom, receive the love. And as you said earlier, one of the favorite things that you said and that you shared on your post was how you met us and how your resistance came up right away.
Yes.
Love that you shared that.
Yes, we love that authenticity and vulnerability.
Absolutely. And we know, we are here with those, for all beings really, but who will make the connection with us are those with eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to feel. And that's who we serve.
Yes.
And the one thing that we consistently say to our community is that you must dissolve yourself into devotion, to devotion itself. And to that devotion, our devotion is to be of service to humanity. Our devotion is to be of service for love, to be love in action, to be love in motion. And to dissolve yourself back to that love and that returning to that, the innocence of the essence of your being. There's no words that can be placed upon that. It's like trying to pin something to the sky. It's just not going to happen. Nothing can be touched in that purity. And so what we're here to do is really just remind people of that level of purity, that level of depth and connection that sometimes is masked because the mind plays its game of duality. And sometimes the depth and the wisdom and the purity and the sanctity of one's heart forgets to be experienced, forgets to be expressed.
And lived, and have just taken the nectar out of life and drinking that nectar and then transmitting that nectar to the world.
Yes.
It is such a blessing.
God is sweet, and that sweet nectar, when you taste that nectar, there's nothing else that will ever satisfy your thirst ever again.
And it's never going to be external either.
Yes.
It cannot be.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. You touched on something that sparked my interest. Well, first of all, you mentioned that, Sananda, your path was one of more inner alchemy, and how Shekina, yours was more one of destiny, and how you went through a death initiation of 6 days and 6 nights. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more on that, as well as maybe expand upon the difference between the inner alchemy and the destiny piece.
We will absolutely do that. So 6 days and 6 nights, what does that mean? 33 years old, which is a very particular number in numerology. It is actually the initial frequency of the Christ consciousness. And so 33 years old, 6 days and 6 nights, woke up on 10-10-10. That was a very, very important day of manifestation for the entirety of the planet. And it was a day in which the Christ consciousness came back onto the planet in a very specific manner. And why? And so through this death initiation, what was happening was that the original soul that we call the previous inhabitant was going through the entirety of the karma, the lessons, the life stream,
The bardo,
the contracts, the oaths, the agreements, the obligations, the ancestry, the genealogy, all of it that is within the physical vessel.
It's sort of like how life flashes before your eyes at that last moment of your last breath. There's this consistency when people have those near-death experiences. They see this flash, and it's sort of like their entire life and sometimes lifetimes, depending on the age of the soul, really flashes before your awareness. And this doesn't have to happen only in a near-death experience, but generally that is like the catalyst for that great review that happens. That
exactly.
In the ancient of times, it was known, I'm sure you're well familiar with that, David, in Kemet, it was the weighing of the scales of Mut, the final judgment with Anubis.
Yes.
The rights of the silence.
Yes. So that's just to give you all an understanding of what it was like to sort of experience that flash of all that's being expressed.
That's right. And so through these days and nights, in order for the entirety to be released, the body had to be still. It had to not be in motion. It had to not be in thought. It had to not be in action. It had to be completely surrendered. And I can assure you that the previous inhabitant was not completely surrendered.
So if I may ask a question in between,
yes, beloved, of course.
You're sharing here. So when you say the body needed to be still for 6 days and 6 nights, was it that the body was in a coma? Was it physically dead? Was it like what?
Yes, that's correct.
It was in a coma that all the organs had completely shut down, so the body had given up and was literally completely on life support. So if there was no support, there would be truly no life.
Wow.
So it was completely. And just to give a little bit of a backstory, when this was happening, this particular beloved had a very large community around. It's like something that the hospital had never seen before. The amount of people that were coming in and saying prayers, doing mantras,
wow.
and bringing in gifts and doing healings, and like this was hundreds and hundreds of people that would come up, and it was like it was a big deal. This was a big deal when this was taking place those many years ago, and so there was a lot of.
She was everyone's angel.
Yeah, there's a lot of magic that was in the community because of the amount of love that was there for this beloved soul going through this process. And it was like nothing that the doctors had ever seen before. Wow. It was a specific strain of meningitis that hadn't been seen in over 30, 40 different years. And it was like, there's different strains as well. Some are bacterial, some are viral, some are more deadly. And then this one was like the deadliest. And that's literally put the physical body in complete death state. And so that's how powerful it really was. It wasn't like just flashing, having experience and coming back to the body. It was literally out for that 6 days and 6 nights.
That's right. And according to all of the many beloveds, I or she, or however you want to see it, would show up in meditations, and their meditations would show up in their dream space, would show up in their prayers, would show up right in front of them, standing right in front of them, and would be in different, sometimes would show up floating on a crystal castle, sometimes show up floating on a lily pad, always floating in some way, according to how they would share about it, and always showed up in a way that would calm them and let them know that all was absolutely perfect, and that what would ensue from this would be really changing the lives of all of humanity at some point down the line.
You know, I want to share and speak into this as well, because it's just so beautiful having Shekina's direct reflection of, you know, what happens from the sort of the higher vantage point. But I also spoke to her earth mother, so her original biological mother, and said, what was it like for you? And this was something that I really was interested in, because it's sort of like, how would that be like to see your daughter go through this process, and at the end of it, she comes back and says, no, I'm your mother. and have that experience to say, you know, no, I'm no longer that being. I'm someone completely different. It was so interesting to have a conversation with her, and what she shared, because she's open-hearted, absolutely, and open-minded, but we wouldn't say that she's gone deep into her spirituality.
Right.
She's quite normal.
She's quite normal.
Very loving, wonderful. Everyone wants to talk to her.
Very beautiful human being.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And
very normal.
Yeah, and what she shared was that there was this one moment that catalyzed the miracle, and she was sitting inside the room, the hospital room, and she was really, really tired. And as you can imagine, as a mother going through this experience, she was exhausted and emotionally exhausted on all levels. And so, but she was in this sort of sleep wake state. And she was sitting there and saying her prayers with her rosary in her hand, and all of a sudden she witnessed this opening of light come into the room. Just out of nowhere, there was this light that just came. And this is profound, by the way, just to share this experience from a very, what we would call a muggle, a non-magical being. That would be like just completely opens their eyes and sees a light coming in the room.
And that's never had any sort of particularly spiritual experience or supernatural experience in any way before.
So never before. And so this moment she shares directly her experience. And there was this light that opens up, and there was this being in this flowing white robe coming through the portal. And he had quite a sufficient beard and long hair. And he stepped down and came into the room and hovered above their beds and placed his hand out and shot this light out of his hand. And in that moment, her body actually recovered. Her signal recovered. Her body started to come out of whatever death state it was in and started to recover. The next morning, what happened was all the doctors of the community, they called her a miracle child, because they never, complete miracle being, because they've never ever seen that sort of turnaround. And I'm sure our hospital has seen many miracles that have happened, but there was papers on this, there was a community around this, that they had never really seen this specific severity of this case go from completely no chance to then completely resurrected and life. And so this was profound to hear from the Earth Mother, to really hear her side of the story, because again, she's not privy to these magical experiences. And so I was like, what does this being feel like to you? And she looked at me and she goes, you know what, he looked like you. And that in her moment, just, she couldn't fathom that, and she goes, and I'm not going to go there anymore. That's her limit. That was her threshold. That was her threshold of how spooky she could go. And she's like, but I'm just so happy that my daughter's here, even though she's not my daughter, but I'm very happy that she's here. She
just said she certainly still looks a bit like her.
Yes, even though it's not, I know that all the nuances and the subtle differences, and even the way that she communicates and the way that she expresses and the way that she just is completely different, night and day. But to me, it's still, for her, was still to be so appreciative that the miracle occurred for her to come back and still have a daughter in her form and flesh.
And did you know Shekina before this happened?
No.
You didn't know her at this point?
No, because this was 9 years ago. No, 10 years ago.
Well, he's known me for eternity, but in this reality,
in this physical dimension of life, we would say no, but in the entirety of how long we've been together in many incarnations, we'll say yes, absolutely.
Got it. And you said something that I'm sure perked a lot of people's ears when you said, now I'm your mother.
Yes, correct.
If you could speak into that, I mean, because I know the story, but if you could speak into that a little bit more, so people have the clarity of what was meant by, all of a sudden you coming through this vessel and looking at your Earth Mother and saying, I'm your mother to her.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is what you would call an entwined. What does that mean? That means that the soul, the original inhabitant of the soul, was leaving or left most of itself, but kept a little bit piece by piece. And what happens in an entwined is that the original soul and then myself, example, this consciousness, comes through and starts to unwind the energy of the soul itself until the soul is completely ready to go.
Wow.
That took 7 years.
Wow.
From that time. That's, by the way, for all, that's a karmic cycle. 7 years is a full karmic cycle. And so that took 7 years to unwind for that beautiful little girl soul to be ready to go. And now who she is outside of that, she's not a little girl at all. She's quite a goddess. However, according to my association with the soul and how it was handled, it was quite tender and in need of a lot of feeling safe that it's all right to move through
and to let go, so that I could fully come in and hold this cosmic mother position. And so from that perspective as well, just to reiterate just a little bit more in that, is I am your mother is coming from that. There's a consciousness that is a lot older than the original soul and the soul family, that has been a guardian and a protector and an overlooker, really, for that family and for her mother. So to come through and say, no, I am your mother, really meaning that I've been watching you, witnessing you, helping you, assisting you, guiding you for a lot longer than you have been a mother beforehand. And so it was that recognition that, no, I am here as someone that has been watching you for many lifetimes, that isn't your daughter, but is someone that is your mother in that spiritual understanding.
So is that similar to when, is that similar to, how do I word this? So both of you being the vibration of Sananda and Shekina, would you say that's similar to when people have the experience of vibrating themselves into a place where they're like, oh, I'm Osiris, or I'm Isis, or Thoth, or any being? Would you say that's a similar kind of experience?
That's a good question. We would say no, but also yes. Because it's a both and scenario. Because the thing is, say for example, you have this profound meditation, and in this meditation you forget your human form, and in this meditation that current life stream that you're living out through your karmic lens is completely forgotten. Similar how when you're in a dream, you don't know how you got to that dream. Right. You don't remember your lifetime that you're doing in your day-to-day. You're in this dream now, and you have a whole new set of laws. You have a whole new set of memories in this dream. So at that time point, when you're in that meditation or in that dream, or some beloveds also get there through medicine experiences where they have some profound transcendental state through a journey. And they have these experiences. Because what is these experiences? It's all consciousness, and there's different vibratory rates of that consciousness. And what happens is that one experiences that consciousness sometimes objectively, sometimes subjectively, and sometimes completely immersed in that. But there comes a time for they must return back to their karmic dues of their own soul. So in the DNA, in the actual DNA structure, it's like a holographic universe. The more you activate your DNA, the more you can read the Akashic records, the memories, the soul records of every single being throughout time immortal. The thing is though, is what can happen is unless you've gone through your own stuff and really liberated your soul and your consciousness, what can tend to happen is that some can start taking on the archetype or identity of something else, and then they become more associated with that, but they still have their own personal stuff to work with. So it can create somewhat of a spiritual trap because they're not really making the progress they can. However, some other beloveds have certain contracts.
It's called spiritual bypass generally.
Yeah, sometimes they can be spiritual bypasses. Sometimes there's certain contracts to work with these other beings as well, to work and to support and to bridge, really, to bridge. If you're here in the third density or the fourth or fifth density, wherever you're frequenting at, you're bridging those higher realms of consciousness. And so really, to answer your question, it's not the same, because there's a difference to be a full embodiment of something, of that energy consciousness that doesn't leave you. It doesn't come in a meditation. It doesn't come from a ceremony. It comes from a direct initiation. This is why I said the destiny path is because you can see these destiny points in your astrology. If you're familiar with astrology, your natal chart, what a natal chart is basically like the snapshots of all the different planetary positionings at that moment where you take your first breath. That first breath is, interesting enough, is your last breath of your last lifetime.
Oh, wow.
You can never escape your karma. Your last breath becomes your first breath, and the cycle continues.
And it goes up the pranic tube. Why is it called the pranic tube? Well, when you're taking your last breath and you're bringing it into your first breath, you're working with the prana that is now also karmically connected. And so you can't escape it. Remember, any time you're working with prana, you will never be liberated. There's only one energy that can liberate you, and that is the primordial energy.
Yeah, so when you understand that, okay, so the pranic energy, that breath of life that gives you that first breath, that carries the message, because all the planets, the angles, the angulation of those planets are so well precisioned and so precise that those planets are like broadcast stations. And so that snapshot becomes what's known as your natal chart, which is sort of like your navel, your connection of your umbilical cord to the universe.
Wow.
So you can get that association.
Yeah.
And so then all the lifetimes that you've ever lived as a soul, those records start getting downloaded. So that breath goes through your pranic tube, out through your spine, out through what's known as your nadis. Those nadis are like spiritual nerves, basically. Those spiritual nerves hold all the memories and records. And your life is about waking up these memories, these dormant understandings of who you are at that soul level. So you can evolve the soul, because all the soul wants to do is to evolve.
Yes.
And so,
embody.
So that's what happens. So you can't really escape your soul's karma and destiny. So in Shekina's case, there was what's known as a yod. It's like called the finger of gods. It's a certain position where there's certain planets pointed at a certain time. And so any astrologer that would look at her original chart would look at it and go, wow, whatever happened at that time was massive. It just happened to be a world axis because it was 10-10-10. The 10th of October 2010 is a massive world axis point. So when something happens at that level, that's, even though it's a personal natal chart, it's happening for the entirety of the world because it's sitting on a world axis point. So
I belong to the world.
That's what happens, is that once you go through your soul's lessons, you belong to the world. You're here not for your own soul's evolution. You're here for the spiritual evolution of the species, for the planets.
That's right. And my entire chart, well, this vessel's entire chart is all the cosmic mother. The entire chart points at exactly that. So just like you said, is it the same if somebody's making a connection with Osiris or Isis? No, it's not. There's so many things. You have to have the contract. You have to have the DNA, a certain DNA. You have to have a certain configuration. You have to have a absolute birth chart that is signifying completely. And your planets have to be 5-dimensional and above planets in order for you to be able to have that.
And just to clarify as well, if you look through the archetype though, you look through the Osiris and the Isis and you understand what they are representing. What are these embodiments representing? Then you see unity consciousness. They're representing the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the divine thought, which is Thoth, the divine emanation of light, which is Ra. We can speak of like the divine expression of love in the many ways of the Sophia or the Yeshua. Yes, you are. It's all the one thing when you look at it through the lens of unified consciousness. But when you look at it for what do these beings or what do these aspects represent in a full embodiment, that's because they embody that totality of what that means. Right. And everyone is here to embody parts of their soul to one day liberate their soul into the totality of pure love. So that's why we say don't busy yourself with what you're wanting to become. be what you are, because what you are is profound. And the true thing is that your unique signature, your unique fingerprint of God, if you will,
can never be recreated.
Can never ever be. So why would you want to be anyone else? You're so amazing as you are, who you are in this moment. Who would you want to be than yourself? You know, for example, you, beloved, you're bringing through such an amazing consciousness that's partnering with who you are, which is also that divine mind is Thoth, but also understanding who Thoth is. You've had many lifetimes with Thoth.
Yes.
So there's a contract there. There's a relationship there. This is not your first rodeo in a lifetime. There's an association there, but we can't say that is for everyone.
Right.
We can say that there is certain beings that have certain contracts, and that is not everyone's contract.
You can only have one CEO in a company, beloved.
I love that. And I feel like you guys really spoke to something very important in terms, well, you spoke to many things important, but you spoke to something very important when you said, you know, it's very easy to get caught up and carried away in these divine beings who come to work with you and play with you, and you know, and see them as more special than yourself, you know. So when you spoke to how we really have a unique vibration, we have our own unique fingerprint, that's the most important thing to own. Because, you know, I could speak for myself that I've definitely went through those wobbles and wavers, you know, because it was Shekina, it was you who was one of the catalysts for me, where I remember we were standing in your kitchen, and I don't even know what triggered this or where this came from, but from my remembrance, it was completely out of nowhere, where you just looked me in the eyes and you were just, and for whatever reason, you were just like, and you as an incarnation of Thoth. And when you said that, first of all, I didn't know how you knew about my connection with Thoth, because I never told you. And up until that point, I was pronouncing it Thoth. But there was something in the frequency in which you said it and the way that you were looking at me, that it felt like you plunged a harp string inside of me, and a valve opened. And then it was literally the next day or 2 days later, it was December 19th, 2019, where in a meditation experience, I experienced my ego dissolve and felt Thoth resurrect through me. And it was this powerful experience, but it also came with lots of challenges of having this confusion of identity and not knowing who I was or Thoth was. And, you know, so it's easy to get caught up in the, I guess the magic of it, the specialness of it. And I guess the mastery is even through that, still owning your own vibration, so you could really see clearly the truth.
Absolutely. And it's also really important to understand that Thoth has many bandwidths, many experiences, many ways in which transmission occurs, and many rays of wisdom. And so what incarnative presence you are working with right now, and what percentage you're working with, when you are working with that, also important to connect with that bandwidth. Because you right now, you might be, let's say it starts here and it goes all the way up. You might be working here, and this is the bandwidth that you're working with right now. And why is that? Why is it not all the way here? Because you're still going through your soul's involution and evolution.
And that's exciting as well, because why would you want to start at the top when you get to go through all the magical bandwidths? No, it doesn't mean like higher is better. It means that there's more. There's more that gets to evolve. There's more that gets to marinate within you.
Unpack and wine. These are the treasures. This is the gift.
It's unwrapping a gift.
Yes. And the one thing that it feels important to share with all the beloveds that are gathering and listening, when you interact with such beings, these again are representations of frequency in form. And so what happens is that when you genuinely connect, when you understand your own magic, your own pure heart song, the truth of your being, when you don't try to cover that up, but you actually bring it out, and you really bring it out in the purity of virtue, the purity of that virtuous nature, what you notice is that these beings, they come and give you gifts. They come and they give you gifts that unlock more of you. And
Yes.
more of you may look like an aspect of them.
Especially if that gift is coming from them, that thus is creating a connector point with somewhere within you.
Wow. Yeah, I got that.
It's the association with, because the ephemeral mind, human mind, can really only grasp so much of all of this. This is the great mystery.
So it's sort of like you get to partner with these essences that help cultivate your own light to bring out your own brilliance. And that's why we share a lot in our community. When it comes to having a teacher, there's a lot of conversation around this. Like, does one need a spiritual teacher? It's a great point with this, because so many people are diving into their own spirituality, and
false sovereignty is what we call
and there's a lot of like, don't give your power away and all of this sort of stuff if you have a teacher. And we feel that when you come from a enlightened perspective, and you've heard us say this before, it doesn't matter if you're following or if you're leading. If you're in bliss, if you're in the seat of your heart, if you're in that purity of your heart and you're experiencing that bliss, who cares?
You don't.
If you're leading or if you're following, you don't. Because the truth is that in that field, if you're with a true teacher or a sat guru or someone that is really holding exactly the message of absolute love and conviction of God, you're being supported, you're being harmonically inducted into higher frequencies by being in their presence. That's the true reason to have a teacher, is so they teach you how to become your own self-master. They're igniting, they're reflecting the pure light that is inside you, but might be a little bit cloaked. So they're pulling these cloaks off you so you can actually rise into your own truth, your own connection to that source. And how it's done is the only way we can ever be a teacher is through that line of love, through that connection of love. The miracles and the healings and the profound teachings that we always give is only coming from that space of love, to support from that field, and to support you to love yourself greater, love yourself deeper, to love humanity more, to give you greater hope so you can be a beacon of light, a light leader in this world, because that's what this world needs more of.
Yes. And you know what, I was actually reflecting on that quote the last few days, as far as whether you're a leader or follower, as long as you're in bliss. And what came up for me was, I feel like there's a subtlety to that. And I'm curious to hear what you guys will have to say, because, for example, I can choose to be in bliss, be it with a teacher or in a certain environment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm also choosing my highest path at the same time. In the sense of, I might have a calling to go a certain direction, but I'm perfectly in bliss over here, or I'm perfectly in bliss with this teacher, but I'm using that bliss as a bypass, I guess, or a delay on where I'm being called.
So what is your intention? Right?
Yes.
That's always one of the most salient questions to ask. If you're over here and you're in bliss, or you're deviating from that bliss for whatever the reason, what is your intention? What is your intention in this world? Where do you want to get to? And what is the feeling ultimately that you wish to have?
Yes.
And it's interesting when we speak about not needing a teacher. When someone's reading a book, or they're reading a blog, or they're even just witnessing nature, they're still being taught. You cannot not have a teacher in your life.
No, and
that's where the spiritual trap is. It's like there's an ego resistance of like, no, I need to do this myself. It's like, you can't do anything yourself. You have such a universe that you don't even realize. You can't, if you don't eat for a certain period of time, your body will waste away. If you don't breathe air, your body will not animate. Your heart will not beat. So who's really being taught throughout their entire life? There this is the thing, is like
That's
no one is, no
Only
one
ego
is,
says that.
exactly. So once you get away from all of that and just accept life how it is, and whatever brings you back to the core of love, the quickest, the most direct line to love, that's the direct line to source. And anything that brings you, not just anyone, but anything that brings that, invokes that within you, that brings that deep connection of love, that brings out your true nature to really serve others and to live a better life, and not for the sake of yourself, but for the sake of, because it's your nature. It's all you know. Yes. Whatever invokes that, that is your teacher.
Very well said.
Remember that anybody who says they talk about full sovereignty or sovereignty, that means reigning over something.
Yeah, sovereign.
Sovereign. And so one who's truly sovereign does not need to eat, does not need to sleep, does not need to breathe, because all of this is happening naturally. You're actually going to breathe from your field itself. Your skin will breathe for you. Your entirety, your system will become completely different. So we can assure you that those that are talking about sovereignty and what that means might not completely understand it.
What we like to share is like, sovereignty being that your soul reigns over the ego. That's all you have to really worry about. Having your soul reign over the ego. And then that's what true sovereignty is.
Oh, I feel that one. I like it. I like it. Yes. Yeah, that was beautifully said. I love that, even just the imagery of the soul reigning over the ego. And so with the interest of shifting gears a little bit and playing in different ponds, I remember one time, Sananda, you had shared that your relationship with Shekina has been one of the most challenging and beautiful experiences of your life. But I've always been curious, what kind of challenges have you had? And also, I'd love to hear your perspective as well, Shekina, if it's been challenging for you and what that's like, because you both really have a very inspiring love, a very inspiring partnership. I personally love the way, not even just, your coherence and the wisdom with each other. I see the way you guys look at each other. I could feel the way you guys love each other, and that's inspiring. See that, and that's inspiring. So I would love to hear more on the challenges that you say that you experience, and just shine light on some of that.
And that's a beautiful question. When I speak of challenges, it's really important to understand what that means for me. The challenge that I have every day is that I make sure that I'm so aware of the other, my significant other, my beloved. So my life stream was very much the solo path, living in caves, living in the Himalayan mountains, meditating for days and weeks and on end. And that my service was truly just to renounce myself and just be a feather in the breeze. Just to be completely free spirit and just be a nomad. And so that's how I really was before.
Sounds like me.
before Shekina and I got together, I was in the Himalayan mountains and I was meditating. I was doing ritual baths in the Ganga, the holy Mother Ganga River, which was just beautiful. It was freezing cold every single day, every single morning. We just wash myself, bathe myself, and do my meditation. And I'll literally be doing yoga and meditation for 18 hours a day. And that was just the life. That was the life that I was living at that stage. And then when my holy beloved came through, she first came through in my meditations, just sort of hovering above me and just appearing. And I was just sort of noticing that, wow, she's watching me. There's a connection. I knew she was significant, but I sort of felt like maybe she's just one of the beloved Rishinis that come in from time to time, or one of the goddesses that come in from time to time, just to check on one's own progress.
So you didn't have a sense in that moment that was your beloved?
No, there was no sense that that was my beloved. There wasn't that feeling. There was just a great honor. It's just an honoring and an appreciation for her light and for who she is, her divinity. And what happened is that we then went to Egypt, and Shekina was invited to come to Egypt, because when she showed up in her ethereal form, she looks very much the same as she does, but more transparent. So there was sort of, I wasn't aware if she knew that she was coming or if that was just her sort of higher self coming through, whatever that was. But she was fully aware. She was sending her light body. She knew what she was doing. And then when we went to Egypt, there was this retreat that a lot of my students were coming on a tour, and I invited Shekina to actually come, and she was to bring in the divine feminine energy. And soon as we got together, it just was this complete merging on the service level, not a romantic level. It actually never had a catalyst of romance. Not once.
Oh, wow.
It was just service. It was really, we're working with the ley lines. We're resurrecting the ley lines with a pyramid. We're working on certain priest and priestess rites for our group. We're working in different dimensions when we're working
back
through
to Adam and Eve.
Yeah, we had to
go through.
We had to go through all these sort of couplings that through time historic had these archetypes and narratives around. So we had to go to certain temples. When we go to those temples, there was certain geobiology to do, which is basically a fancy term of calling dowsing. Dowsing, divining, working on the grids, working with higher energies. It was a lot. It was multifaceted, but we're trying to bring it into an understanding. So the challenge for me, biggest challenge, was I was used to meditating days and days out, doing yoga endlessly, and then all of a sudden, speed ahead in our relationship, we had this full service contract mission for humanity, and it doesn't look like being in the caves anymore. Doesn't look like being in the mountains anymore.
Babaji told you to leave.
Yeah, Babaji, when I went to the Himalayas, Babaji literally told me, you must go back to the West. You know, you have a specific role to do. And so it was quite a laugh that happened. It's like I went all this way to the Himalayas, and I got told to turn back and go back to the West. And so for me, my biggest opportunity that could be assimilated as a challenge was the lifestyle challenge. There was a change, a whole change of being. But what happened from that was just a deepening on every level possible, an integration of every level possible, a deeper love that can be expressed through the true beloved in physical form and inside oneself, to have that acknowledgement. And we remembered that we're already married. Like halfway through the trip, we recognized that we already were married. And so marriage to us just became instant. We were literally physically married within 2 months of being together, because all the memories that we had.
Legally.
Yeah,
we
legally.
were married before that.
But all the memories we had at the soul level and beyond the soul just started streaming back. And so we just witness and recognize each other, but it happened so precisely. That's, again, in divine timing, everything happened so uniquely and perfectly, because we didn't have those memories as soon as we met. It was sort of just the work, the service. We had to serve the group. We had to serve the land.
I will say that when you did first encounter this vessel, you cried.
Yeah, when I first met her, which wasn't Egypt.
She's like, I'm just going to drop that one in.
That is indicative that there was a very clear knowing.
Yeah,
yes.
there's a deep, at a deep core level, when I heard Shekina sing for the first time, the purity of her voice just brought my heart to tears. And I knew that voice, I knew that song, I knew that frequency, I knew that vibration. My logical mind had no parameters to understand that, but my heart's intelligence was just bathing in the beauty of the divine feminine and the beauty of the divine expression that she is. And then that catalyzed our connection, but it was just a connection of association. There was nothing more. There was just knowing her through association. And then it just there's a beautiful interest of, we're going to Egypt. Would you like to come? It would be wonderful to have the divine mother frequency in our group, the divine feminine to come through. And she was like, maybe, yeah, we'll see what happens. If the guidance permits, you know, just it was like perfect. And that's exactly how it was meant to be.
And that's how I lived. Thank you for all of that. It's always fun to reiterate a story that also feels like a past life, even though it was just a few years ago.
Yes.
To experience that and re-experience that. And on my end, right before all of this happened, I was actually in Avalon in Glastonbury, England. And I'd been there for a few months, living there. You know, both of us for years, we walked the grids of the earth barefoot. We pulled in the codexes. We traversed places where most people would never want to go.
It's like, just to speak into that,
yeah.
It's like waking up one morning and having your phone ring and picking your phone up. It's like, okay, now you have to travel to England.
Exactly.
You have to go to England now. And you have to go to this point and this location. You have to bring this crystal and you have to do this work. Okay, next call, now you have to go to Peru. So for a long period of time, like 7 years, there was, and even now we do grid work where we just know exactly what we have to do and where we have to go, and we go do it. But that's what was playing out for both of us at a period of time. Just that surrendered, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as a feather in the wind moves with grace, this is how we lived our lives. And as I was in Glastonbury, I heard very clearly I needed to go somewhere specific, and I needed to go immediately. Okay, wonderful. Get on a flight, and it's time to go. And so
from California
to Glastonbury.
Yes.
And then from there to Paris, and from Paris to different places for different reasons. But this time it was a different place. It was Ibiza. And I knew that I was going to Ibiza because there's an entire party scene that needs to be cleared up. It needs to be healed. It needs the earth grids, those poor darling earth grids need to be brought back up into divine mother love and allowed to really release themselves, because there's so much disembodiment that happens when someone is under any influence of any kind. And so I knew I was going there for that purpose. And I knew that I had 2 exact days to be there. Only 2 days, not one moment longer. And so I ended up staying in his guest house.
Yes.
And this was 1 day before he left for the Himalayas. 1 day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the day before. I just had ended a long-term relationship at that time, had no intention of ever being in a relationship ever again, was literally left my home, my belongings, everything in Ibiza, and went to the Himalayas. And the only thing that I had scheduled was potentially going to Egypt. Egypt was still, a potential and a possibility. And the other thing was taking a students through the Annapurna ranges of the Himalayas and taking them through a 10-day trek. And then I was just going to retire into the mountains and see what happens. So there was again, just complete surrender at every level of this.
And before that, I had been told, okay, you're going to go to Egypt now. And I said, now as in this moment now, or now as in soon? It's like, in the next couple of months. And so my first question is not how or when or anything, or what am I doing there? My first question was, do I know who I'm going with, or am I going on a solo journey? And so the answer was no, you don't know who you're going with. You do know, but you haven't met in this life yet.
Interesting.
And then 3 days later is when he stated that he was going to Egypt. This is when I was actually in Ibiza.
Yeah.
And so that was a very clear moment of this could be the opportunity that was spoken of just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, so that was like 3 months later, I went to the Himalayas. You probably went back to Glastonbury. And then 3 months later, we ended up meeting in Egypt. I went to Egypt 4 days earlier before the group started gathering. And it was just, I wasn't sure if I was going to go. but it was like last minute, really to the last hour. It was like,
Exactly.
yeah, no, it is important to go. So I went. And then Shekina as well, we didn't speak to each other before we left, but we landed there on the very same day. And so even just the same day that we met, and then we just, again, went straight into working, just went into the service work and started doing certain grid work. It was very much grid work associated until we went deeper into Egypt, and then certain.
It was pulling up the world karma. Actually, we were going through the access points of all the world karma and pulling it all up, because it was time now, in order to bring the new earth in, to birth a new earth. All of this had to be dissolved.
And what that means for beloveds on the call as well is that when we talk about pulling up karma, you have to remember that everything is recorded. So wherever you are in this moment of now is being completely recorded through the fabric of time and space.
Mm.
And so the energy lines on the planet are like the nervous system of a human body.
Mm-hmm.
And so the energy system of Gaia, she has a nervous system, she has a chakra system, she has all these different parts of her own biology, and that has memory in it, just as the water inside your cells has memory.
And your nadis also have all your records.
Yeah, so she has that as well. So when you connect with the grids, there's a specific way in which you do a specific technique that can pull up records to work through them, so you can clear the lands.
But for us, we didn't need the technique. It was just naturally coming out.
Yeah.
Moment after moment after moment.
Yeah,
after
by being there,
together.
it just automatically, spontaneously was like a lock in a key, or a key in a lock, and just opened. But that's what we speak about. When we talk about this, this is a very practical way that you can apply these methods to help the earth. Once you know what you're doing through geobiology, you understand that. So we came together in such an instant way. We just started working, and then from that, it just layers of our memory started to peel away. And then one time we morphed beyond our appearance in front of ourselves, and we were doing a foot bathing ritual, washing of the feet, and that's where we just met each other again. And from that moment, we just knew each other, and it just was
we
tears.
Heard it is time now to renew the blah 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 ritual with the da, 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 da. And so we knew exactly what to do. And when we did it, it was completely surreal, to the point where realities were no longer crystal boundaried any longer.
Oh wow.
They were absolutely enmeshed into playing and unwinding, and we are completely sober. Just for your to understand that.
Yeah, and
all the time.
It was like being in a room where there's no mirrors, but the effect, if anyone has seen when they look through two mirrors, it just cascades. That was like the effect that we were having in this space, completely sober, complete normal consciousness, but every single mirror was like a live stream of all the many times and infinite times that we've had souls together, and we've had lifetimes together
in service,
and service
everyone
together.
has been in service to humanity.
That's the only time that we returned together, was when we were to do something specific for humanity. So this was our life story. We don't really share this story, so it's we have on occasions, but you definitely brought it out of us.
Oh, it is such a great story, and I know you wanted to share it in summary. Like I was fortunate enough to hear greater detail back in San Diego, but that was the time and place for that. But thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of people found it fascinating, and what it brings up is I'd be curious to hear what you have to share for those who are out there who are looking for their divine partner, because I could speak for myself where I'm at in my own life, that has become more recently my highest excitement, not from a place of searching, not from a place of needing, but just from a place of feeling and realizing that that's my truth, and for me, it started with, one night when I was going to sleep, for whatever reason, I just tuned into source, and I ask to be married even more deeply to my truth. And with
Wonderful thing to do. So
thank you. And you know, and within that, one of those expressions has been my wife and my kids. And I've shared with you that I've been in telepathic communication with her and for a number of years now, and it just feels like such a beautiful thing because there's no, it doesn't feel like she's missing. There's no wanting for, I could easily tune in and communicate with her anytime I want. And so I'd just be curious what you would have to say in terms of, for those of us who are looking to manifest that one, what is required, let's say?
That's a beautiful, beautiful question. And
feeling into that.
Yeah, the first stream of inspiration that comes through is become that beloved.
Absolutely.
Become that beloved.
Yes.
I love it.
As you become that beloved, you attract that.
You
beloved.
magnetize. You merge into that field.
So a beautiful meditation for all the beloveds that are on this call that are wanting to find that beautiful reflection of their heart's dreaming, of their heart's flame.
Yeah.
What would it be like? What would it feel like? What would it look like to have a life with that significant other, that reflection, and feel into that and allow yourself to feel whole first. Never come from the space of I need to find someone. That's why it's perfectly stated what you shared, David, about no, I'm not seeking her. I can always connect. I just have a deeper knowing that she's with me and that there's a connection within me. There's a telepathic bond. So strengthen that. Strengthen that connection, because the true beloved is you. Inside you is God. That's the true beloved.
And that's exactly.
And when you have that reflection, that is what the relationship is. You don't see someone else. You see yourself. You look at yourself, but from the most pure lens of your heart, and you serve God through your beloved.
Wow.
You serve God through who you are in service to.
That is who we are in service to, is the true beloved.
Yeah.
And
wow.
so he's not physicalized in such.
So beautifully said. That really landed for me, and I'm sure it landed for a lot of people who were asking that question in their minds. So thank you for speaking to that.
Most welcome.
Yeah, that was good. I literally I lost what I was gonna say.
Remember, the greatest moments happen in stillness.
Yes.
That's when your truth is really able to be revealed. The secrets of the universe unraveled. When there is an absolute neutral space that allows you to see, allows you to hear, and allows you to not only know, but become the knowing, as you become the knowledge and the wisdom itself.
I love that. That's music to my soul. I'm curious.
It's like a beautiful thread, just because of the theme of this magical conversation, this magical co-creation, is that there's this beautiful Vedantic teaching, and I'm going to customize it just a little bit just to exemplify the message of what we're sharing and what we're all experiencing in this co-creation, is that it's not what the ears can hear that is the magic of life. It's that the ears can hear that is the magic of life. Not what the eyes see that is the magic of life, but it's that the eyes can see that is the magic of life.
So good. So good. I love it. Oh, that feels good. I love it. I'm curious what your perspective is on monogamy, polyamory, polygamy. What are your perspectives on that?
Well,
Good question. We haven't thought about it.
We
just are who we are. And the truth is, the monogamous relationship, that union, mono meaning the one monad. What soul doesn't know that to be the truth? You know, when you reunite with that oneness within yourself, and you experience that with a container of such purity and love, it evolves beyond the desire of anything that had been physicalized. It becomes more internalized through the divine expression of the higher expression of the divine in your higher chakras. It's not so physicalized. But when you look at the ancient history of many certain communities, for example, the Essene community, and the certain communities that had many wives, what would happen?
There was a reason.
There was a reason for this.
It was not to be pleasured. That was not.
Think about this for an understanding for a moment. When you have a culture that you have arranged marriage, and for whatever circumstances happen, is that, for example, a wife no longer has her husband because he passed away in battle or passed away in any reason, and now she is a widow. And she can't look after herself. She can't look after children because the man no longer is supporting. And what would happen in those communities is that there would be, in a way, an adoption, because the law that was written in that time, the law of man, was that if you didn't have a husband, you were put into a certain class. And so you were in a lower class, basically. And this happens still today in India. So what would happen is that a husband would actually marry another wife in order to take care of them and their children. And so they would merge families. So there was a divine purity when it came to the intention out of love and out of protection to strengthen the community. How it has been modernized in these days, we don't want to speak into, because we don't have an opinion. We truly don't have an opinion.
But what we can say to add to that is that in the days of the patriarchy, in the days of the convolution of the convoluted masculine, there were so many really beautiful divine feminine beings that came to show up, that came to be helpers and supporters to uplift the energy at the time. And so there was not enough one-to-one relationships of divine masculine energies and divine feminine energies. And thus, those who really were, especially in the same communities, divine masculine, would honor and uplift and uphold these women who were not able to find a divine match in order to raise a family, in order to be a self-sustaining unit so that they would not be cast aside. And so the reason for that was such, there were direct laws, there were very clear delineations of how these marriages would be created. And we will say with very specific rules, and we'll also say poly anything is giving away pieces of yourself. So if you can really feel what that feels like, just take a moment and imagine that you're just giving pieces away of yourself versus cultivating
all
together all the pieces that then not only are you receiving, but you are then igniting in your beloved, in the beloved as that God source itself. How can there be a question?
Yes, I love that. It's so well said. And you know what I want to do in a moment is I want to open up the floor for questions. But so while I give people the opportunity to start to type their questions, I wanted to speak into that, because you know, I went through myself, I went through a phase where I wasn't sure if I was monogamous or not. And it was, I don't know if I would say it so much as a, I guess, yeah, it was a challenging time and just a very, it was a time of a lot of reflection, which probably lasted
Can
a
I ask
couple.
you a question though?
Yes, please.
Really, because as I see it in the field, what I see is that you were in pieces.
Yes. Yes.
So since you were in pieces, then it makes sense that you would thus think that that was what you were aligning with.
100%. 100%.
So the story itself, the narrative of that, is only a three-dimensional perspective of an inability to understand where the disassociation is coming from.
100%, and which is ultimately what I came to realize was that, you know, it was, you know, it was this deep recognition that there was somewhere where I was not fully honoring my spirit, and I was compromising myself to be in certain relationships. And since I was compromised or fragmented, there was always a part of me that was wanting something else or more. And so I came to the conclusion at the time of polyamory, until eventually I realized that no, that's not actually the truth inside. It's, you know, it's that there's certain frequencies I'm wanting to experience and give to myself, but I'm not honoring myself. I'm not fully honoring my spirit.
Anytime, and this is for anyone, that there's a need for more, enough will never exist. Never. And what that means is that you're giving all your power away because you're not here. You're not now. Because
Yes.
the only time you want more is if you're either in the past in a wounding or in the future in an uncertainty.
And would you make a distinction between need and desire?
We could easily make a distinction between need and desire. In order for someone to exist that has not yet transcended, they need food.
Right.
But a desire is coming from a lower center.
But also, there's two levels to look at desire, because desire isn't bad. There's the heart's desire, the soul's desire, which is to unite with God, to unite back to the eternal source,
Yes.
the innermost, highest power. And then there's the human desire, or the ego's desire,
Yes.
for pleasure. But what happens in the psychology of the human mindset is that it moves towards pleasure, but doesn't realize it's on a pendulum swing that takes them straight back to pain. And so they keep trying to fight themselves to get to pleasure, but then it comes back to this pain. And it's pleasure.
And they don't know why. Why is this happening to me?
Why is
I get out of this?
Why is my life looking like this? Until you come back to the one true desire, to truly know thyself, to truly love thyself.
Know thyself, and you shall know the universe and all that exists within it.
Yes, and all the secrets of the universe come from that mono, that one, that monas, that monads. You go back to that source, become one consciousness, because you are truly that. You're just playing with yourself through this experience of life. Come back to the truth of your being. And then from that space, you still have to have the desire for liberation for it to happen.
But you have to let go of it at the same time.
There's a point where you have to let go of it, because this is the funny thing that happens. It's sort of like one may have this desire for enlightenment or ascension and liberation. We have a distinct understanding that is unified with each level of that, but different. There are different ways of the same path in a way. So what happens is that even if you don't have the desire for liberation and you go, okay, well, I'm going to let go of the desire for liberation, but then you have the desire to not have the desire for liberation. So you're still in this double bind. But what happens is when you let go and you just listen, you be still, you meditate, you slow your mind down, you feel, you think with your heart and you feel with your mind. When you do that, something magic happens. And what happens is that this higher intelligence that is your soul starts talking through you, into you, as you. And then your life starts opening doors. Certain doors open up and there's certain opportunities that come through and synchronicities start blending in. these serendipities start appearing. And then it's like, wow, the universe is giving these messages. Yes, because you're making those right choices, because you're following the true desire.
But actually the universe never gives nor takes from you. All it does is show you.
Yeah,
Yes.
so when you're listening to
All
you,
it does.
when you're listening to the true you, the universe will represent the true you,
It
give you
shall
the true
reflect that
opportunities open up to you.
Mhm.
You know, you don't have to force a beautiful rose to bud. You give it the right conditionings, you give it the right soil, you give it the right love, you give your soul that same love, you give your soul the same environment to thrive. It will naturally unwind and open up and become the most fragrant sense that you've ever experienced, that you ever could experience.
Yes.
And that you've been looking for your whole time, whether you have a drug addiction or an emotional addiction or a sex addiction or any sort of addiction.
We've seen it all transform like that.
All of those addictions is because you haven't felt that love. It's because you're truly looking for something that's your soul's aching for, to feel that love once again. And when you do, when you feel that love, when you truly connect with that essence, all of those experiences, all of those lack mentalities just dissolve back to where they once arose. And you are left with this endless connection that feels so right, that you've been looking for every single lifetime, and you've arrived there. And that experience is like walking to the gates of heaven. And because it was so amazing, and because creation and the creator and God itself is so benevolent and so forgiving, the life force allows you to have that experience as many times as you wish. So you can move away from love anytime you want, because that is unconditional love, allowing you to do anything that you desire, but you can always come back and return home.
Always return home.
Yes.
Never a moment. Every time you take a breath, you can choose to return home.
Yeah. And so if you're hearing this, if your soul's resonating and vibing with this frequency, our message is so simple: return back to love, because that is what your soul is waiting to be and feel and experience and experience.
And this is why, this is what our role is. Our role is to heal the paternal and maternal wounds, because almost every person in the entire world has them.
Yes.
From this lifetime or others.
Yeah. We are spiritual parents. That's what we are. We're here just to love you unconditionally, no matter if you love us or not.
It doesn't matter if you love us, if you don't, we're still here.
We're still
the
here.
sun is going to shine whether you're looking at it or not.
Yes.
It does not need you to shine.
Yes, I love that. So many gems in what you just said. I'd love for you to clarify. You said something that piqued me. You said, think with your heart and feel with your mind. What did you mean? What did you mean by feel with your mind?
This is what we teach our students.
This is a beautiful technique in our mystery school. And when you feel with your mind, what happens is that your mind becomes a servant to your heart, because your mind has this ability that is hardwired to always think, always process, always analyze, strategize, all this sort of, and it has this in creative potential as well. The higher mind, we're talking about something completely different.
Nothing here.
The higher mind, there's a direct stream, and there's a Buddhic understanding, but we're talking about the normal human mind. But when you teach your mind to think in a way of feeling, so what would it be like to feel? What you're doing in that moment is you're switching a switch, you're flicking a switch for your mind to be organized back through your heart. And because your heart feels, because feeling is that oneness. You can only feel oneness. You can think about oneness, but you can't really experience it until you feel it, until you're immersed in it. Your heart's supreme intelligence knows that so well. Your mind dreams. All the mind can do is dream. That's all it can do.
That's all it can do.
And it's what it's doing right now.
It's not a dream.
And so your heart, when you think with your heart, you're giving superiority back to the true source of your being, because your heart already knows before it happens.
Yes.
Your heart's intuition is so profound that it knows exactly how and what to do when you need to do it.
And this is why it's so important to open the heart, because yes, that's true, but it is not true completely unless your heart is open to receive that wisdom, to hear that wisdom that's untainted by its previous experiences that bring it into fear. Because remember, there's only two consciousnesses that one feeds, and that's love or fear. And it is always your choice as to what and who you wish to feed. And we will say that just as humans eat food, there are beings that eat consciousness. And as they eat consciousness, what you're feeding them is going to give them more fuel to create more of that in the world.
Wow, that's a profound one. Thank you. Yeah. I'm gonna shift over to the questions to see what everyone else would love to hear from you guys.
Does that resonate though, beloved? Before you move?
Oh, very deeply, very deeply.
You can feel he's like.
Oh, I'm having such a good time. Oh, all right. Let's see over here. One question, this actually popped into my mind earlier as well, is Jessica asks, she says, I'm curious if you guys still communicate with your earth parents.
Oh,
yes, absolutely.
Daily.
Yeah, we absolutely cherish them. But the difference is, you know what's quite funny? We're at a level, because there's this,
for them,
there's this saying that is, if you think that you've reached enlightenment, go spend a week with your parents.
Yes.
And there's a beautiful saying, or a week with your family. What's happened in our life, just as a reflection, is that our earth parents communicate to us as their mother and father, really. So they speak to us in that level. They acknowledge us as their spiritual parents, their mother and their father.
Their cosmic parents.
That is a beautiful reflection of just the truth of what is in our reality. And so, yes, we absolutely connect with them. We overlight them, we heal them, we support them, we do everything. We love and cherish them. And we are here to help them grow and for their souls to become free as well. We are here in service to them as much as we are in service to the world.
Absolutely. And that's actually something that I shared with my beloved Earth Mother, was that this vessel's beloved Earth Mother, was that it is a blessing that it is I that am here and not the original soul that she gave birth to, because I can keep her, what I can do for her is infinitely greater.
Wow. Wow, that's well said and very profound and beautiful. Beautiful that you're still in contact with your earth parents, because I definitely had that curiosity myself. Like, I wonder if they just go curl up with their parents sometimes, or.
Oh, they would love that. We don't do a lot of curling up, but we do a lot of heart share, and we always keep them abreast and updated with all of the intel that's coming in for what's coming for the future and what has been already.
We're here to be illuminators for their hearts and for their life.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's see what else we have here.
Thank you for all your questions, beloveds. We're so happy to answer them as best as we possibly can, and we hope that you can feel with your heart all that we've been sharing.
Yeah.
Here's a good question that will open some doors, I'm sure. Are Sananda and Shekina accepting students, and what are ways to connect with them? I am so inspired, fully receiving this love.
That makes us so happy. Of course we are.
Yes, we have a website. It's called twinray.com, and you can connect. We have a free mobile app that you can download. There's some free courses, some free meditations. We just did a masterclass that is all about beyond awakening. What happens after you awaken? Really, how can you show up for the world, and what's happening in the evolutional story of Earth as well. So we talk about certain energies that are coming back to the planet, certain cosmic plasmic energies that are returning, that that have been showing up since 2017. And there's a lot of science and data that has been revealed, these prophecies of many different ancient cultures. And so there's a time point, and there's a certain point of that you have to prepare your light body. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can go to our website, and there's so much free material as well. And there's endless sharings on our platform. So yes, if you want to learn more, if you want to be part of our Golden Age community, we welcome you with our open arms and open hearts. We have the most
beautiful community.
Yes, we also have a beautiful private Facebook group as well, and we just have the beloveds that share their experiences. Because we've created. We were
just listening to one right.
Yeah, we're listening just before we got and. Just the sharings of like how one's life has changed in such a beautiful way. It's like
such a short period.
Our service is really just to that moment where you see that light spark, that light in the heart, the light in the eyes, just sparks open, and you need to remember how amazing you really are and how loved you've always been.
It's so fun.
That's our service.
Fun. People ask us all the time,
what do you do for fun?
What do you do for fun? What do you mean?
We are fun.
We're it. Like,
yes.
We don't go out. We don't, we have zero interest in doing what probably most people in humanity do. Our fun is service. Our fun is teaching, is healing, is bringing the miracles,
teaching divinity,
and teaching divinity.
Yeah,
reminding you who and what you are beyond the mask,
and what you can do, and how you can serve, to give you the inspiration to be a catalyst for this world. Like that's really. So thank you for that question. And yes, absolutely, twin ray. And there's a deep meaning behind what twin ray means. And
would you like to share what that is?
Well, twin ray is basically it's a divine union that has
the hierogamic union.
It's a unified masculine feminine in a one relationship. So there's two bodies but one consciousness. And that happens. There's a twin flame that happens, and twin flame first happens inside you. There's this beautiful ignition inside your heart. There's two flames that open up, and then that other, and that twin flame is sort of this dance of sort of polarity. There's this beautiful bliss that happens, and then there's an integration of all the various stages of the twin flame. But there comes a time when you have to
be liberated in order to have.
Yeah, it's another way just to understand that what happens when two liberated beings come together in holy matrimony
together. You descend.
Yeah, and that's really we're in this new cycle of time. It's a teaching, beloveds, how to ascend your consciousness, to come into such unified awareness from your masculine and feminine inside yourself. And then the new leaders of this new earth are going to be the divine couples. The divine couples are here to champion in the golden age, to lead with great support and uphold humanity. So we're here to be the teachers, and we're here to support anyone through that process that wants to be of true service to humanity.
That's right. And again, the twin ray this is how we best know to explain it. It's like divine mother and divine father of all sacred unions. It is the pillar by which they get to experience what a divine union actually is. And the day that we came together, actually, we had a very well-known, beautiful being who's also a reader, which we think is fun sometimes. She's a friend of ours, and so she was reading. She said, the day that you came together is the day that you ignited 144 million possibilities of divine union to come into form.
And she had no idea that we were working on the grids, and we didn't even, like, we saw that happen, but we were just like, okay, that is what it is. And then she reflected this back, what were you doing? Because on that day, whatever you were doing, as you connected, as you unified, you did this.
That was when we went back to Adam and Eve and Osiris and Iris, and we went back and did the crucifixion. We went through every really, really powerful and significant union and coupling. And after we did whatever we needed to do, that's when the ignition happened. We have so many stories. We are filling books with our stories. And
I'm definitely very excited to read whatever books you end up writing. And I'm not someone who reads books, but I would definitely. I would definitely be curious, and we'll absolutely leave the links of your twin ray on the post so that people can more easily access it as well.
Yes, beloved, thank you.
So there's a question here from Sydney asking, how would you tell someone how to connect and feel into oneness? I hear people talk about it a lot and it resonates fully, but I have yet to actually feel it.
That's beautiful.
The only way you can feel oneness is through the omnidimensional space of your heart. It is the one that holds all of the bandwidths.
So if you took a moment to come from that space of your heart and let's just do a very quick exercise. This is going to be super, super quick, but very impactful. You take a look around the room for a moment. What do you see? You may say, oh, I see a chair, I see a table, I see a plant, I see a computer, I see things. But if you take another look, and now instead of looking at objects, look at the space. Just look at the space that's around you. It's this invisible space, but it's holding everything. So you can see the things and the objects, but at the same time, you can see the oneness of the space that is containing it all. Just as if you were to look, just as if you would look at the night sky and you look at a star, look at the constellations. But if you look back at just the entirety of the sky, you see it's in this one womb. So that's how you could understand the concept. But how do you feel it? That's a beautiful question.
Yes.
And it's sort of like when you listen to this beautiful tapestry of just exquisite orchestration of notes. You can listen to this symphony. You can, whether it's a symphony of certain instruments, or it's just a piano solo, or it's someone that's so immersed that they've become one with whatever they're doing, whatever they're playing. Their instrument is playing them. And they're not just playing the instrument, they're completely merged with that instrument. And then there's pauses, there's those gaps between the notes. Those pauses make up the entire symphony. Because without those pauses, it would just be this one train of sound. But it's those little pauses. So for you, beloveds, and anyone wanting to know what oneness is like, is that when you take a moment and just pause, just pause and soften.
Always
soften and just become tender to the moment and just feel the beat of your heart, how the beat of your heart is giving sustenance to the 50 trillion cells of your body in one physical form, and how that body is being sustained by its environment, and how that environment is being sustained by the universe, and it goes on throughout infinity. But that pause, that moment, that allows you to witness the stillness, the silence, the oneness.
That was so beautifully stated, my beloved. Really. And I hope everyone can really feel that. And then to bring that even into another level, imagine that you are seeing from your heart. So energetically, just you put your head to the side right now, sort of cut it off, and allow your heart, draw an eye in the center of your heart. Just take a moment and drop into that space. How would your heart see the room? What would your heart notice? How does your body feel when you are looking through the sacred, omniscient eye of the heart? Now imagine someone in front of you, whoever, call someone in to stand right in front of you, and see them now through that lens of the heart. How does that shift your awareness of them, your connection to them? And how does thus your being feel in this beingness? Because there are no thoughts in this place. And then you can further expand that eye. Really, what we can do is limitless. And as you expand that eye, you get to see even more connectivity of the rest of your home. And then you expand that eye ever greater, and now you can see your neighbors. And you can see the grass and the trees. And the more that you expand that eye, you're telling your heart, I'm ready to expand ever deeper, ever greater, ever wider, and that it's safe. It's completely safe, because as the eye expands, it's telling the heart, I'm safe. I can see as the great witness, and yet I am safe to continue to open. And eventually you become the eye, and you become the space. And you can touch with your hand anything, anywhere in the entire world and beyond. Because you are connected. And there's no possible way that you could not be. It is only your ability to perceive what and how that creates the illusion of the separation for you. Dissolve, dissolve, dissolve all now. And this is how you return home.
Dissolve into the devotion of the one true love, the source of love itself, and feel that in the silence, and feel that in the stillness. Amen. Aho.
Amen. Blessed be.
Amen.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that one.
We're really good at the unexpected.
Oh, I love it. I'm extremely blissed out right now. What was beautiful about that is that you could truly see nothing but beauty. And you could truly experience nothing but love in that space, no matter who you look at, no matter what circumstance you observe.
Yeah.
So simple, but so powerful.
We had to, when I first came in, what I had to do before was to witness every single atrocity that's ever happened in the entire world. And I had to stand there with the greatest compassion, with the greatest love for things that you would not believe. Because that's all that we can do. And just like Buddha walks onto a war field, and because he has no ounce of war or fight within him, every single being on the field puts down their battle armor and stands in that purity. This is what we all must do. Face and find the battle within. Put down your armor and return home.
So well said, and so practical. So practical. I love the drawing of the eye on the heart and playing with that. That's definitely something I'm going to be playing with for a good little while now.
Wonderful.
What would you share for people who would like to learn how to better navigate triggers or programs that cause them offness? What would you share for that?
We have a course for that.
we have a full,
very in-depth, miraculous course for that.
Yeah, we do. What we like to just share, just a simple process, is that don't resist it. If you have a trigger, don't resist it. Just allow it to arise inside you. Witness it. Before you take that act of saying the thing that you can't take back, or doing the action that you can't take back, before you do whatever you're going to do that has a chemical stimulation inside you to animate or speak or say, coming from some place, just take a breath just before. Just have a little bit of awareness just before. And instead of expressing that energy, as you pause and as you witness yourself in that moment, before you do anything, appreciate that trigger, or change your belief that it's a trigger and that it's actually even the trigger can become a treasure. See the trigger as a treasure.
So
and if you allow yourself to see it as a treasure, you're going, wow, there's a part of me that wants to do this right now, but there's another part of me that's a little bit more aware that just wants to breathe right now. And there's that other part of me that knows the betterness for my well-being, just to take myself out of the situation altogether. And so I'm probably going to go for selection 3 and just do that. And now let me unwind that treasure. That's my body, my mind, my spirit, my essence is asking for me to be aware of. And as you do that, then you don't blame the other, because there is no other. There is no other out there. You are your projection. No matter what that person has done to you, no matter who you want to blame, the ego wants to hold on to its it wants to justify everything, that no, I'm in the right. Please, you have to listen to me. You're wrong, and all of that comparative lens is just based on one thing, and it's the fact that you forgot to love yourself in that moment. And that part of you that you haven't loved deeper is resurfacing itself, so you can be aware that there's a part of you that's calling for your attention. So how do you turn that trigger into a treasure? You love yourself ever greater, because the only answer to every single question you have, beloved, is love.
That's the question, that's the answer. Sometimes it's interchangeable for many.
And your life will reflect, your life will project all these different experiences for you to witness yourself in order to love yourself more, to the depth that you become love itself. Get lost in love, because when you do, something magical happens, and it's that you find yourself.
So good. So good. Oh.
So beautiful. And so as a technique for somebody who's really going through seeking their treasure box, one of the first things you want to do is you want to recognize that if you're being affected by something that is perceivably external, it is something within you that is either unhealed or something you wished you possessed more of. Now, this could be through your ancestry line. This could be the voice of your mother or father, earth parents of origin, that they have projected and conditioned you in a certain way. This could come from almost anywhere. But what's most important to understand is that it is far easier to shatter your mirror than to face what is really happening inside of you. And so, as we know that the earth is the hall of mirrors, it is the grand playground by which all is revealed. Why is it necessary? Because, beloved David, if you weren't in front of a computer right now and you weren't seeing yourself, and I asked you, how precisely to every detail do you look? You probably wouldn't be able to tell me.
Correct.
And this is what the mirror is for, so that all that you cannot see, because it's in the unconscious, it's wound around the DNA, and that's what wounds are. Wounds are those elements that are wound around the DNA.
So good.
And so as you unwind, you thus create the ascending spiral of DNA instead of the descension, which is what humans for lifetimes have been going through, is the descending spiral. And so when you have a moment and you're in an opportunity to find the treasure, where inside of you do you feel that in your body? Is it in your head? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Usually for people it's here or in the shoulder area, because this is where your power center is. And so what happens is, if you perceive that someone is taking your power because you're out of control, because you're in what we call
a wobble,
so to speak, this area is going to be pulled essentially. And so return that energy. You're going to call your energy back in. Call everything, you're going to bring it all back to you, because what you've done is you've given it away. You're going to bring it back to you. And then you're going to take a moment. This is where the stillness comes in.
Take a breath.
Take a breath.
Take a pause.
Breathe into the space by which the discomfort is, and sit with it. Not in a space of you did this and this is why I feel like this, but in fact, when in my lifetime have I ever felt like this before? What is my earliest memory of this? You don't need to know consciously, because your unconscious records every moment you've ever taken breath. So from that space, the answer shall come, and thus the unwinding of the wound begins. Yeah.
Beautifully said, my dear.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I love that, as I'm sure everyone, all 70 people watching as well. Thank you. Just to do a check-in over here, how are you guys doing on time? How are you feeling?
We're timeless.
We're timeless.
We actually have.
We do have commitments that we have on our end, so we can probably do another 5 or 10 minutes.
Perfect. That's what I was feeling as well. Okay, just wanted to check in. All right, let's see what we have over here. So many people just, that was so beautiful. Let's see what we have. We have people in
we
tears.
Can't read the comments, beloved. Can you read some of the comments?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
We have lots and lots of hearts. That was so beautiful. Crying, so powerful. A call home. Beautiful. The eye of the heart. If thine eye be single, the body shall be full of light.
Yes.
The energy here is so pure. This is like pure nectar. I am in love. Yes, and it continues on. So let's see over here. I saw a few questions that I scrolled by. how would you recommend fully trusting the heart and releasing thought?
Do you have a choice? Really? What is your choice? Go through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime repeating the same behavior and not getting that connection that you seek so dearly? Or allowing your love to be greater than your fear?
And the easiest way to do that, which isn't easy, it's easier said than done, but there's a simple concept, is that you have to retrain yourself to recognize that fear is safe. If you understand that fear is safe, you can love yourself ever greater in those moments. And when your body feels that fear, feels that resistance, has a projection, has a trigger, whatever that may be, if you have the association in your consciousness that fear is safe, because on the other side of fear, because all you're really fearing is something unknown to you in that moment. And on the other side of fear is actually something new, which is what you're really craving. And when you get through those moments, even if they're tough moments, even if they're deeply tough and something that is so haunting in your life that is coming up and you don't want to witness. But what happens when you go into that fear and you know it's safe, that you become stronger than you can ever believe yourself to be.
Ever.
You can shatter into a million pieces just so those million pieces rebuild yourself back up.
And resurrect just like the Holy Phoenix.
And so when you understand, when you do something specific and you trick your mind, thinking fear means resistance because it's unknown, I don't want it, but you go, no, fear is safe and there's something new that's going to happen through the unknown. I'm going to learn more about myself. I'm going to see more of myself. I'm going to find more of myself so I can love more of myself and others. All of a sudden you feel safe.
And that's ultimately be love.
And then the feeling of fear dissolves into the feeling of safety. Because when you truly love, you open up the space to be loved. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not feeling that love, it's probably because you're not giving yourself that love. And once you give yourself that love, you open yourself up to receive more love, then there's beloveds that come into your life that can reflect that same love that your heart and your soul is desiring to receive.
And they're just waiting there. They're just waiting energetically to come in when you're ready. When you give the signal, yes, you're ready, that your desire is greater than your fear, that your desire to know love ever deeper is greater than anything that is unknown. And so again, do you really have a choice? Yes. Eventually you must, and you will ultimately open your heart. Why not now?
And that's what spirituality is all about, is coming into your self-mastery. And so to be a true master, you have to become fearless.
You really do.
You have to become absolute fearless in the face of life and hold your heart filled to the brim and overflowing with that truth of safety, that you are safe, you are protected, that you are absolutely held when you align with the universe. And how do you align with the universe? You return back to love, because when you are in alignment with cosmic law, that very cosmic law will support you through your life. There's a saying that's in the Buddhic lineage, is those who uphold the Dharma are held by the Dharma. The Dharma is the cosmic law. So when you're in alignment with your heart filled with love and you see with non-judgment, you're in your neutral point. And again, we're not talking about a romantic idea of love. We're talking about the very center point of your being. When you're from that center point of your power, you face life with a fearless attitude. You can return everything back to that alignment. Yes. And that's where those fears, those concepts of fears, they're like water on a duck's back. They don't last. They just wash away, and you return back to what you truly are. But you have to embrace it. You have to embrace it first. You have to know it's safe, because if you're resisting it, it's going to persist. It's going to keep coming back to you. You have to embrace it. And once you embrace it, you realize that there's two things. You realize there was nothing to worry about at all, or that after going through it, it may have been absolute intensity, but you are stronger because of it.
Or another absolute possibility, which we see all the time, is at the moment that you really drop into your heart, your entire timeline reality changes. And thus the thing that you were afraid of to begin with is no longer a variable in your life at all, because you have moved through. Remember, fear and love cannot exist in the same house. They cannot. And so neither can fear and God. It doesn't mean God's not present. It means you can't experience that love of God. And so one must come down in order to meet. So the question is, you need to rise. For love will not come down, because then it is no longer that.
Wow, so good. And I really love that line of fear is safe.
Yeah.
That's such a profound rewiring and truth that I'm sure is a game changer for a lot of people. Thank
Love
you.
game changers.
Yes, you are both definitely that. Let's see here.
So we might have, what, maybe one more question?
question.
Okay, let's do one more question.
One more? Okay. So actually, let's end on this. I have an inspiration.
Okay, beloved, yes.
Let's imagine you were about to give your final hurrah in human form or in physical form to the audience of Earth, and you had one last message to share with everyone that you really want everyone to receive and absorb before your departure. What would that message be?
Thou art that.
Love all, serve all.
Very simple, very profound, and thank you. You both are truly such a gift. I'm honored and so happy to have met you both and to be connected with you. And I would love for everyone who's watching right now and everyone who's watching on the replay, if we could just take a moment just to shine our love on Shekina and Sananda so that they could just receive for a moment, that would be beautiful. We thank you for all that you are. We appreciate you. You're amazing. And you truly both are such a gift. And so thank you so much for being everything that you are and for taking this time with us to play in magic and in love.
We feel you all.
Past, present, and future.
Thank you, beloved David. It's been an absolute joy.
Yes.
And to see your smiling hearts and just asking such beautiful questions and holding a wonderful container together. Thank you for everything that you are and the light that you bring to your community and to the world. And thank you for this opportunity of co-creation. We truly love you.
You too.
Absolutely.
You're so precious to us in our heart, and really so articulate and such a wonderful, wonderful addition to our lives in the many ways in which we get to interact with you, and we honor you, and we are here to serve.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to whenever the next time is.
Yes.
And however, in the meantime, we thank you and wish you farewell.
Blessed be, beloveds.
Blessed, blessed may you all be for you all are.
Mm.
All right. We are officially off the live stream.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was so fun.
It really
So
was.
cool.
It really was. It was a great time, and it was fun getting to know you deeper and sharing that connection with the world. I feel like that served a lot of purpose. I know a lot of people got a lot out of it, and I'm sure you'll find a flood of new students heading your way, which is
Oh, what a blessing, what a joy.
Yes, and we'll definitely send this out to. We put it out to our private communities as well. So we'll post the recording. It's beautiful. It really was just
perfect.
so perfect.
Yes,
So perfect.
definitely beautiful, and we'll have to do another one sometime.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yes, and I'll send you both the recording as soon as it's done uploading and all that technical stuff.
Beloved, we loved what you said so much. Is it possible to put it on the website?
Of course, yeah. I'm not even sure what you're referring to, but
you're part of it.
Yeah, just the entry point was just beautiful,
so
beautiful.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
of
welcoming.
course.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. It was straight from the heart, and I meant every word and then some. I really do appreciate both of you. You've impacted me deeply, and even when I'm not physically present with you, I often call on you both for guidance and love, and it's super supportive, and so thank you.
And we'll always be there.
We'll always be there.
We'll always come flooding into the room for you.
Thank you so much. Wishing you well. Blessed be.
Blessed be, beloved.
We'll talk more soon. Take care.
Farewell, beloved.
Farewell.